On the Run from Isofell by M.R. Anglin, Part 3. Skitter shot up to a sitting position. The moon and stars shone down on him. He had collapsed on the sand somewhere around sunset and had fallen fast asleep, but a noise had woken him in the middle of the night. A howl tore through the still night. It was the same noise that had woken him up, but this one was much closer. A snarl rolled through the air. Skitter swung around. A brown animal that went on all fours crept closer to him. Its teeth were bared and glistened with saliva. Its fur was on edge. "Wow!" Skitter got to his feet. "I have never seen anything like you before. You are a beautiful creature." It snarled and leapt. "Back! Back!" A figure jumped between Skitter and the animal. He had a lit torch in one of his hands. "Duval?" Skitter blinked at him. "Get out of here! Nantuk always travel in packs." Duval waved the torch at the creature. "Go to my bike, now!" Skitter glanced over his shoulder. Shireen sat on the sandbike a short distance away. She beckoned to him furiously. Skitter darted to it. Shireen motioned to the sidecar, so Skitter jumped in, squashing some of their supplies in the process. Duval threw the torch at the creature, darted to the bike, hopped on in front of Shireen, and took off. The creature galloped after them, but it soon fell behind. "What did I tell you?" Duval shouted at Shireen as he drove. "I told you he was nothing but trouble. Why did you insist on following him? We've lost half a day of traveling because he walks so slow." Shireen ducked her head, but held on tight to Duval. "Shireen," Duval sighed. "And you!" he shot a glare at Skitter. "You are so danger-prone, outsider." "I would have been fine." Skitter tapped his knees. "Cadiel said this wasn't my time to go yet. Though being attacked by that thing would have hurt a lot, so thanks." Duval took a moment to stare at Skitter. "Whatever." He shook his head. "Weirdo." Skitter let a snicker escape him. That wasn't the worst thing he had been called in his life, and Duval probably wouldn't be the last to say that about him. It was surprisingly cold in the desert that night. Goosebumps rose in waves on Skitter's skin as wind from the bike's motion washed over him. He had bundled himself in his tail and had started to feel cozy when Duval pulled the sandbike to a stop. "We'll camp around here tonight." Duval surveyed the area. "But we need a place far enough from the road that we don't get seen." "Why don't you want anyone to find you?" Skitter buried his nose in his tail. It's... Duval turned away, scratching his cheek. "It's none of your business, that's what." Skitter cocked his head. This whole situation was getting more and more interesting as time went on. Shireen gasped. She tugged at Duval's clothes and pointed to the distance. When Skitter looked, he saw an orange flickering glow on the sand. A whisper beckoned him to the light. "Firelight." Duval tapped the seat of his bike. "We should head off and travel a bit more. We don't want to—" "Hey, Shireen!" Shireen had hopped off the bike and darted toward the fire. "She's got the right idea." Skitter jumped out of the sidecar and trotted after her. "I'm surrounded by crazies! Get back here, you two!" Duval darted after them. When Skitter caught up to Shireen, she was standing before the fire, staring at a figure sitting next to it. It was a white Alsatian, what some people call a German shepherd. He wore the same kind of clothes as both Duval and Shireen. Actually, the same kind of clothes as all the experiments Skitter had met thus far had worn. "Hello." The Alsatian smiled at them. "Come by the fire and get warm." There was something about that voice that made Skitter's heart jump. He dashed to the Alsatian's side before he realized he was snuggling next to a stranger. But the Alsatian didn't mind. "My name is Joseph," he said. "Duval, Shireen, thank you for defending Skitter those 2 times. It allowed me to set all this up for you before you got here." "You know this kid?" Duval pointed at Skitter. "I've been traveling with him for a while now," Joseph said. "Isn't that right, Skitter?" "That's right!" It wasn't until the words left Skitter's mouth that he realized he had been traveling alone all this time. Well, alone except for Cadiel. But somehow he didn't feel as if he had told a lie either. He turned to the stranger. Joseph looked at him with laughing eyes. It made Skitter want to jump and shout for joy. Who was this guy? "If you had waited a few moments once he had chased Nantuk away from Skitter, you would have seen me." Joseph stoked the fire. "I was shooing off the rest of its pack." "You were?" Skitter's eyes widened. "I was," Joseph nodded. "Then you must be a fast traveler," Duval said. "I am," Joseph said, and offered no more word of explanation. Skitter studied the stranger. If he concentrated, he could almost recognize him, but the truth seemed to be hidden. Joseph chuckled to himself. "Skitter, are you thirsty? If you are, you should drink." "All I have left is the rest of my water bottle." Skitter pulled out his bottle. There was only a fourth left. Drink, Joseph said. Skitter shrugged. He was thirsty, and looking at his water was making his tongue stick to the top of his mouth. He downed the contents, at least he would have, but the little bit of water he had didn't seem to end. There must have been more water in here than he had thought. He drank until his thirst had disappeared. When he looked at his water bottle again, the water level had not dropped. Skitter's eyes bugged out of his head. What the? He turned to Joseph. You, can I yell? Shh. Joseph put a finger on smiling lips and winked at him. Now please sit. I give you my word that you are safe. He looked into Shireen's eyes, and I'm sure you'll find the solution to your particular problem soon. Shireen's eyes widened. She plopped onto the ground. We don't need your help, thanks. Tuval caught Shireen's hand. Let's go. Sit down, Tuval. Joseph motioned to the ground. If you go further, you'll find yourself in trouble. Tuval crossed his arms. Why should I believe you? You don't have to. Joseph smirked at him, but in a good-natured way. But you should. Tuval snorted. He sank to the ground. All these stupid outsiders, he muttered. I'm only saying because it's too dark and dangerous to go any further. You are wiser than you think you are. Joseph leaned forward to look him in the eye. Both you and Shireen are welcome to me. Tuval's fur stood straight on end. His face flushed, and he looked away. Joseph leaned back on his hands. Why don't you go to sleep? Skitter and I will keep watch. You're right. Tuval crossed his arms, as if I would sleep with outsiders watching over me. He glared at Joseph through narrowed eyes. It didn't take him long to fall asleep. Skitter let his eyes wander over Tuval's still form. He has been awake longer than he should have been. Joseph laid his hands on his knees. The poor thing has taken on too much for one his age. Is it my business? Skitter looked up at Joseph. Can I ask what he's been through? You'll find out soon enough. Skitter drew up his knees to his chest. So how come you came? I mean, how come you're visible to me? You're not usually. And how come you didn't let me know who you were at the beginning? Because sometimes I like to surprise you. You make the most delightful face when you're surprised. Skitter couldn't help but smile. So, Shireen, my dear, Joseph's voice rose. Would you like to tell me why you've been calling out to me all this time? Skitter turned to the place where she had been sleeping. Shireen pulled herself onto her hands. And by the way she blushed, it was obvious that she had been eavesdropping. She looked Joseph right in the eye, shrugged, and shook her head. Of course you've been calling to me. You've been calling to me ever since this terrible plight has befallen you. Joseph gave a grin. You just didn't realize it was me you were calling. Shireen's eyes widened. Now come, Shireen. Joseph patted the ground in front of him. Won't you sit and tell us what has happened? Shireen got up from her place and sat where Joseph had indicated. She glanced at Tuval and bit her lips together. Her eyes darted around the camp for a moment before she nodded to herself. Then she looked into Joseph's face and gestured with her hands. No, dear. Joseph held up his hands. Use your words. Shireen blinked at him. Sir? Skitter played with his tail. She can't talk. Of course she can talk. Joseph's ears turned forward. She's just unable to at the moment. Her voice was stolen from her. Shireen's mouth dropped open. Skitter let his whiskers twitch. I don't understand. Shireen, would you be so kind to allow me to look inside your mouth? Joseph said. Shireen started, her ears shooting straight up. I'm sure he'll be able to help you, Shireen. Skitter held the tips of his toes. Shireen clamped her mouth shut. She shook her head so hard her hair slapped her cheeks. But why not, Shireen? Skitter got to his knees. Shireen shook her head even harder. She scrambled to her feet and darted to the sleeping bag. She climbed in and pulled it over her head. Shireen! Skitter got to his feet to chase after her. Let it go, Skitter. Joseph put his hand on Skitter's shoulder. I knew she wouldn't trust me all at once. She feels there's more to me than she can see, and it scares her. But why? You'll find that out soon enough. Joseph leaned back. Go to sleep. I'll watch over you tonight. You won't see me in the morning, so don't be alarmed. Continue on with your journey. Okay, but... But? Is there something we can do to help Shireen and Tuval? Skitter tapped his fingers together. I know I only met them today, but... Skitter! Joseph said with a laugh. Why else do you think I called you into this desert? Skitter's face beamed. I have given you the authority to help them, Skitter. Joseph put his hand on Skitter's head. Whatever you need, you'll be able to do it. Thank you, sir. Skitter curled up next to Joseph's side. Joseph stroked Skitter's hair. Skitter, you are a joy to me. Skitter curled his tail around his body and smiled. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for part 4.